The sun had barely crested the oak-lined street when the commotion began. My wife Emma was cradling our newborn daughter on the front porch, rocking her gently against the morning light. I was inside finalizing mission logs for a private security contract when I heard Emma's voice crack like a distressed radio channel. Rushing outside, I saw Karen, the self-appointed HOA commander, in her signature pearls and designer blouse, looming over Emma as she demanded the baby. "You need to turn her over now," Karen hissed, hand reaching out to seize the swaddled infant. "This new construction violated setback rules. I'm taking custody until it's resolved." Her entitled sneer barely registered as I crossed the yard at a controlled but relentless pace. Emma's eyes were wide with shock, the baby cooing only momentarily before a wail split the still air. Karen froze as I stepped onto the porch, my posture calm but unwavering. "Let go," I said, voice low, measured, no hint of welcome. She glanced at me, startled by the shift in atmosphere, then at the baby in her arms. "This isn't about you," she snapped, swaying with defensive fury. "It's about community standards." Bolstering her stance, she pressed the phone to her ear, dialing 911. Emma lunged forward to shield our daughter, but Karen spun, triggering the panic sequence. 911, "I need the police. My neighbor's wife is assaulting me over property violations." Her words tumbled out as if scripted. The phone button glowed red. Seconds later, distant sirens echoed. That was the moment everything changed. I dropped the crystal decanter I'd been polishing, its shards tinkling like alarm bells. In 2 strides I closed the distance, speaking through my clenched jaw. "Karen, put my daughter down now." She stiffened, mouth open, clutching the baby. I calmly drew back my right hand and landed a single precise strike to her forearm. The blow snapped her elbow against her sternum. She gasped, eyes watering as she lurched back. Our daughter's cry pierced the tension. Emma swooped in, gathering the baby to her chest while I retrieved the decanter base, tucking it behind my belt. Karen staggered, the phone skittering across the porch floor. When the deputies arrived, breathless and flashing badges, I raised my hand slowly. "She's unarmed," I said crisply. "But she did call 911 falsely and attempted to abduct my child." The deputy's eyes flicked to Karen, who sat on the porch steps, clutching her arm and sobbing theatrically. One of the officers, a stern woman with decades of service scars etched on her face, knelt beside Karen to check her pulse. Another deputy moved to Emma and me, separating us gently but firmly. I handed the papers Emma had thrust into my hands, our daughter's birth certificate, Emma's ID, and our notarized deed showing our address. The deputy scanned the documents, his expression shifting from caution to resolve. Within minutes, Karen was handcuffed, her protests swallowed by the morning stillness. She wailed about tyranny and unfairness, but the deputy's voice was unyielding. "False emergency calls and attempted child endangerment carry serious charges, ma'am. You're coming with us." Karen's eyes met mine, her entitlement stripped bare, replaced with fear and disbelief. I retrieved the phone from the porch, switching it off. Emma gathered our daughter to her breast, soothing her with soft humming. I placed an arm around Emma's shoulders, my voice gentle now. "You're safe." The baby's cries faded to contented hiccups. Our home had been protected from noise disputes, from property battles, and now from an overzealous Karen. But I knew the war wasn't over. That afternoon I filed official charges. Count 1, false police reporting. Count 2, attempted child abduction. Count 3, assault on a law enforcement official by proxy, since she'd drawn deputies under false pretenses. I copied the county sheriff, the district attorney, and the HOA board. I included the 9/11 transcript, deputies' reports, and security footage from my doorbell camera showing Karen's approach and the altercation. By evening, the HOA president convened an emergency session. Karen's HOA privileges suspended, her board membership terminated, and an apology demanded by midnight or face a civil suit for emotional distress. As dusk settled, I held Emma and our daughter on the porch swing. The cicadas droned overhead. The neighborhood hushed around us. Our daughter's tiny fingers grasped my shirt. I thought of my SEAL training: discipline, precision, zero tolerance for threats, and realized this moment mirrored every mission I'd ever led. Protect at all costs. A knock on the door startled us. Emma nudged our baby into my arms as I opened it to find Michael, Karen's son and my daughter's unofficial godfather. He thrust an envelope into my hand before bolting. Inside lay a note in trembling script. I'm sorry. Mom's been unstable since Dad passed. Please forgive her. Beneath it, a scribbled plan. Karen had checked into a stress clinic, and Michael begged me to consider diversion rather than jail. She needed help. The unexpected compassion struck deeper than any legal victory. I closed the door gently, sealing off the night's last tremors. Emma wrapped her arms around me, whispering, "Justice served." But in the quiet, I wondered if justice-like service sometimes means guiding the lost back to shore rather than leaving them to drown. Now I ask you, when entitlement and violence collide with protection and mercy, which path will you choose? Right or wrong? The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains as our daughter cooed in her crib. I cradled a mug of coffee, the steam swirling in my vision. Emma stirred beside me. You have a court date, she murmured. I blinked, recalling the legal storm set in motion. I nodded, steeling myself for the dual role ahead. Devoted father and unwavering seal. At the county courthouse, I stood before the judge in a crisp suit, Emma at my side, our daughter nestled in her car seat carrier. The prosecution restated the charges. False report of a child abduction and attempted family interference. When it was my turn, I spoke clearly. Your Honor, these actions threaten my family's safety. I'm not seeking vengeance, I want accountability and rehabilitation. The judge listened, gaze firm. He scheduled a pretrial diversion hearing contingent on Karen completing mental health counseling, community outreach speaking engagements on 911 misuses, and an apology in open HOA forum. I nodded, acknowledging that true justice must balance deterrence with restoration. Back home, Emma kissed my temple. I'm proud of you, she said. Our daughter gurgled in response, as if in agreement. I realized our love formed the backbone of every action I'd taken. In the weeks that followed, Karen began her mandated path. Weekly therapy sessions at the community clinic, and a one-time speaking spot at the HOA's garden pavilion. I received an official request to co-host the event, turning my statistics on false emergencies into a cautionary tale for neighbors. On the appointed day, Karen appeared beside me, still wearing the security clinic's wristband, face paler but determined. She began. I lost control. I let fear drive me to harm the people I vowed to protect. Emma and I sat in the audience as she shared her journey, her spouse's accident, her unchecked grief, her realization that authority demands humility. Her voice wavered, then found strength. As Karen's talk ended, I approached the podium, placing a hand on her shoulder. Thank you for facing your mistakes publicly, I said. May we all learn that service must begin with empathy. The crowd applauded not for spectacle, but for honesty. Karen bowed her head, tears brimming. Our final twist arrived when Karen's therapist reached out, commending her progress and inviting her to volunteer at the clinic's support group for bereaved spouses. She accepted, channeling her need to control into genuine care. The HOA, impressed by her transformation, reinstated her as a non-voting advisory member tasked solely with organizing grief counseling events. One evening, I found Karen on my porch, nursing mug of tea in hand, gazing at my daughter sleeping peacefully inside. I wanted you to know, she began, voice soft. I respect your family more than ever. She handed me a small wooden token, carved with an anchor and the words steadfast heart. Navy tradition for loyalty. I accepted it, mind awash with the unexpected bonds forged from conflict. As autumn's chill crept in, I reflected on the whirlwind. A neighbor's entitlement, a seal's precise protection, a community's collective will, and redemption born from accountability. I hung the token beside the hands where they belong, plank, symbols of both vigilance and mercy. So here, standing on the threshold of winter and the promise of new life, I pose this question. When the fierce zeal to defend meets the grace to forgive, which will guide your hand? Speak your verdict, right or wrong. Evening light spilled across the long oak table as neighbors gathered beneath strings of twinkling lanterns. Karen hovered at the feast's edge, clutching her lemon tart like a timid bird in a gilded cage. Grandpa Arthur, his silver hair backlit by the glow, motioned her forward with a broad, inviting sweep of his hand. She hesitated, her pearls catching stray sparks of light, then approached, her footsteps tentative across the soft grass. He patted the bench beside him. Come, child, he said, voice both grandfatherly and commanding. This is how we break bread together with respect. Karen lowered herself next to him, the tart trembling in her grasp. Around them, ranchers in cowboy hats, young mothers with babies, and retired teachers passing casseroles watched in hushed anticipation. Grandpa raised his mug of cider. "Here's to humility," he toasted. Karen followed suit, lips quivering. Silence held until he leaned close and invited her to speak. Her voice emerged, soft but earnest. "I built fences to feel in control. I see now I tore my neighbors apart instead of bringing them together." Her gaze swept the familiar faces. "I want to be part of this land not as an enforcer, but as a steward." The words settled like seeds in fertile soil. Neighbors murmured their approval and offered her work gloves, an unspoken pledge of solidarity. As night deepened, Karen served slices of tart to those she'd once alienated. Laughter returned, weaving old bonds and forging new ones. Over the following weeks, Karen led more than fence repairs. She joined the local 4-H club teaching youth about pasture ecology, organized barn dances to fund shared fence maintenance, and spearheaded a planting initiative restoring native grasses along property lines. The new split-rail fence became less a barrier and more a canvas, hand-painted with barn stars and family crests symbolizing joint ownership. County officials, impressed by this grassroots turnaround, visited Unity Ranch and recommended our Grandfather Clause Plus restorative service, model for wider adoption. Soon, the county council unanimously passed a resolution endorsing this approach across rural subdivisions. Months later, under a banner proclaiming unity in the valley, families gathered for the annual Harvest Festival. Children chased goats, elders swapped yarn by the fence, and Karen drove a decorated tractor trailer, her laughter woven into the fiddle music. Grandpa Arthur, leaning on his cane, watched from the porch with a proud smile. I stood beside him as the wind carried the scent of hay and cider. He turned to me, eyes bright despite the years. "Rules are only as good as the hearts that honor them," he said. I nodded, absorbing the lesson of fences raised in anger, fences removed in triumph, and fences rebuilt in friendship. Now, after witnessing how an old rancher's steadfast courage and a humbled HOA president's willingness to change reshaped an entire community, I ask you, when boundaries threaten unity, will you guard what matters or let compassion lead? Right or wrong?